If things aren't right at home, things aren't going to be right at work.
We're in a world today where a lot of people think that work-life balance is 50-50. They often say that work-life balance is not 50-50.
If you want to be able to trust someone with your life, there's got to be some accountability beyond punishment.
If I can change one individual's life, then I think I've done it. I've been successful.
How do you hit a quota and hit KPIs along with also being authentic?
So that's where me and a lot of recruiters bumped heads. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have anybody that you're reaching, that money doesn't have any actual value.
I am a perfectionist, and when I don't reach perfection, I'm my biggest critique. But I learned not everything's going to be perfect. If we were all perfect, we'd be like Christ.
Today's guest is Staff Sergeant and 11B Infantryman in the U.S. Army, Jon Tozzi. He served with the 25th Infantry Division and the 3rd Cavalry Regiment, the Houston Recruiting Battalion, and is currently in the 7th Infantry Division. His career spans combat arms, leadership recruiting, and large-scale operational readiness.
If I can't be an asset to you, I'm a liability, and a liability will ultimately get us killed. I did struggle with alcoholism, getting drunk every weekend, fighting people.
I want to get deep here for a second on that.
That's hard.
Hey, quick pause before we go any further. If this conversation is already resonating with you, it would really help us if you like, follow, or subscribe to the show. This isn't for the algorithms, but it tells us that this kind of thinking is actually helpful for you.
It was very structured from eating, sleeping, doing what I needed to do every day. I kind of led or lived the militaristic lifestyle. Everything was kind of planned out from a very young age. And then it translated into me being an adult now where I have to do everything kind of to a standard or to a time frame or to a schedule. If it doesn't, it kind of messes with me, but it's okay. Growing up in that lifestyle, I mean, hearing the stories that my parents and grandparents and cousins had from the military, they always spoke with a sense of pride and purpose, and I wanted that. Obviously, it's a volunteer service, so no one forced me to do it. I didn't think I could see myself doing anything else. Could I went to college on my parents' benefits? I could have for free, but to me, this country is the greatest country in the world, and for me to reap the benefits without serving it wouldn't sit right with me. In a way, this country's done so much for me, so I'm going to give back by doing a service to it, whether that be join the Army for one contract to now me being almost 10 years in.
So how long have you actually been serving?
So I'm coming up on 9.5 years, almost 10 years. So straight out of high school.
Okay. You have some other experiences outside the military, but how has it been juggling life and military at the same time, pulled into this theory of perfection?
Mhm.
Do you at times find yourself toying with, okay, I have to be this way with friends, I'd be this way in the military, I got to be this way with my superior? What is that? How do you navigate a different type of person every time we talk?
So it's very hard. I am a perfectionist. And when I don't reach perfection, I'm my biggest hater or the biggest critique on myself. But through self-development, I learned not everything's going to be perfect. If we were all perfect, we'd be like Christ. We'd have Christ lives. So, that's kind of hard. You're going to fall short. It's one of the biggest things in life that I've come to learn is you can try to do everything that you can to be successful, but Murphy's Law is going to take over, or there's going to be another power, another will, and you just got to roll with the punches. So in that, it's like me learning, okay, I did my best as long as I gave 110%. If I didn't get the outcome, hey, I can't say I didn't do it. Now with like meeting other people, it's very hard because again, to me, I'm just a regular guy. To, someone on the street, like a young man or a young kid, like I'm a superhero. I'm like, nah, man, I just, I eat and play football, do my job and go home. I just wear a uniform. So it's kind of people hold, especially in the military or military individuals, they hold us to a higher standard. And when we don't meet that standard, it's kind of scary, because again, I like to say it on my platform. I like to look good for the taxpayers. So whether that's me being physically fit, that's me, keeping up to my rifle and pistol marksmanship to anything I do, it's for the taxpayers. Because at the end of the day, like my salary comes from y'all. So if I don't look like I can do my job, then what are y'all paying me for? So it's navigating that is, again, finding peace that I'm never going to be perfect, but I'm going to strive to be. I'm going to do everything in my power to do, to be perfect.
Walk us through, for the taxpayers, walk us
Mhm.
through what a day looks like in active military.
So it depends. Obviously, basic training, it's only, 9 weeks and some change. So it's very structured again. You're getting told when to wake up, when to go to bed, what you're going to do for the next 9 weeks. After that, you get a little bit more freedom. You'll go to your job training. Depending on your job, it's anywhere from a couple weeks to almost 6 months. After that, you'll go to your first duty station. Fortunately, I went to Hawaii, 25th Infantry Division, which to this day, I think is the greatest infantry division there is. Other people might have other opinions, but that's their opinion. And Hawaii was known for its high op tempo, high operations tempo. So what that means is when I got there, right out of basic training, right out of job training, I got attached to a special operations unit. They came to train with regular conventional forces, and we were in the field for 30 days. 2.5 weeks out doing trainings, doing surveillance, reconnaissance, a small unit tactics, recovery, stuff like that, and then getting back to our forward operating base or FOB, in the training environment and to where we were relaxing. It was very different. So it was just, for me, it was like, this is what the Army is. I'm in the field, 20, 30 days, 7 days, 10 days, it doesn't matter. But that's when it calls for it. There are times where it's just, regular 9 to 5, where me personally, I'll wake up at 4:30, get my mind right. So I'll ground myself. I'll drink my coffee, get in my truck, call my fiance, head to work. And then when I get to work, I check on my soldiers. I go to the rooms, make sure the rooms are clean because again, everything we do, we're disciplined. So if you can't clean your room, how do I expect you to clean your rifle? How do I expect you to do certain drills to the standard if you can't maintain your room? So just inspecting for cleanliness, everything's good. Then we work out for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then I shower, eat my breakfast, go to work at 9, do whatever task needs to get done. So right now we're going to Korea in January, February. The taskings are, getting the trucks ready, making sure our shipping containers are labeled properly, everything's packed away, everything's annotated on our hand receipts, and then eating lunch and going home, spending time with the family if you can. And that's usually around 5 o'clock. And then you just repeat that until it's time to do a training exercise or anything like that.
You mentioned calling your fiance, and you grew up in a military family. How has that shaped how you approach family life as a leader in the military, trying to hold standards, but then also trying to take that time to connect with your current family?
It's hard. It's difficult because for me, I've never done anything and not giving it my 100%. So me giving my 100% to the Army and then trying to give my 100% to my family is very difficult because I feel like I'm short in one or the other. But in saying that, it's also helped me to open my eyes into I'm not going to be able to fully, at the end of the day, there's a replacement for me in the Army. There's not a replacement for me in my fiance's life or my child's life. So would I trade some time at work to spend time with them? Of course, obviously. But at the same time, it's them realizing that this is my job, is my career, and I'm not only responsible for my life and my line of work, but I'm responsible for 11 other people's lives. So if things aren't right at home, things aren't going to be right at work. So it's them understanding and realizing that as well. So it's a very balanced lifestyle. I say it takes a special person to date and ultimately marry a service member because it's not for the faint of heart. Being gone for months at a time, not being able to hear from them or only seeing them over videos, it's very hard. It takes a toll. But if you find that right person and they understand that this is the job and this is some of the sacrifices you have to make, then it transfers really well. It takes a lot of growing up and a lot of trial and error. That's the biggest thing, a lot of trial and error and willing to learn from the experiences.
Sam, you can probably speak to this, but I think in the church world, there's a similar feeling whenever it comes to leadership and family. And oftentimes we see a lot of hurt where families fall apart because people devote their entire life to building a ministry or a kingdom. If you're in business alone, you can get wrapped up in that as well. But John, I think you bring a really good concept of a work-life balance. What does that actually mean? What does work-life balance actually look like? I think we're in a world today where a lot of people think that work-life balance is, and I often say that work-life balance is not 50-50. It's balancing between work and life and trying to give, like you said, almost 100% yourself in the moment that you're in to what's around you and not pulling away from that in that time. So you give 100% of yourself every second.
Mm.
So I like what you said there. Sam, do you have any thoughts though on that whenever it comes to leadership in the church and how the two might connect from the military?
only as much as they allow you to have, right? But in the military, there are like legal consequences. If you don't, you're like, hey, you better listen or else you're going to the brig. You know what I mean? Like I can't, there's no brig in youth group. And I guess I look at how you have consequences if they don't do what you tell them to, they might not be you. But at the same time, if you want to be able to trust someone with your life, there's got to be some accountability beyond punishment. And so what does it look like for you to build that sense of rapport beyond, hey, you're going to get in trouble if you don't do what I say, to create a sense of unity and purpose with the guys that are trusting you to lead them?
Ultimately, it comes down to, I think, a culture, because if you don't buy into it, then there's no way to change your mind. For example, people that want to get fit, lose weight, and they hire a personal trainer. A personal trainer can give them the tips, tricks, and workout routine. But if the person at the end of the day doesn't have the discipline or the want to do it, they're not going to lose the weight. So it's finding people that buy into what you're doing, especially in our line of work, close with and destroy the enemy. That's our main purpose. We are the queen of battle pertaining to chess. We are the ultimate peace. It's kind of ingrained in us at the start of our careers that everything we do is not for us as the individual, it's for the betterment of the team and the betterment of the unit. So at our level, one person you may not think is a significant factor, but it can be the deciding factor in saying that, like, it's instilled, like, hey, if you don't have the discipline to make your bed in the morning, what makes you think you're going to have the discipline to clean your rifle so that it functions on the battlefield? And if your rifle's not clean, it doesn't function properly, it may go click and then it'll cost you not your life, but your buddy's life. And then it's just a domino effect from there. Now we lost your buddy. Now your combat ineffective. So it's like the old Chinese sayings, like we lost the nail from the horseshoe and then the horseshoe from the horse from the rider, and the rider's message from China, and China fell. It starts off with the smallest thing. So having that ingrained in us, it's like, okay, it's not just me now. It's not me. There's no I in team. And as cliche as that is, it is so true in our line of work. Because at the end of the day, it's no longer me. I look to the left, I look to the right. It's the people that are there. So once you get people buying into that, like, okay, I understand. My actions will have consequences that affect the people to the left and right of me, their families, the country, possibly. It kind of gets them to be like, okay, it has them take a step back. Okay, maybe I do need to listen. Maybe I do need to start shaking up and everything. And I'm not saying that as like, not everyone's like that. Some people just naturally like, oh, okay, like they're robots. Like, you tell me to run through that brick wall, I'm gonna run through that brick wall, which is weird to me, but there are people like that. And then there are some people that just don't buy into it, which is great too, but they're just there for a paycheck. But ultimately it just comes down to the individual and the culture. If you have a really good culture, I think everyone buys into it. And ultimately, it breeds success versus not having the greatest culture around. It just comes down to the culture and then the individual person as well.
Yeah. So what does it look like for you to shape the culture, not just in the Army, but in your smaller group? Because I remember you saying you were with the 25th and it's your opinion the 25th is the greatest. What did it take for them to get you to the point where you're like, oh, the 25th is the greatest? Not the whole Army, the 25th.
The reason I think of it is because that's where I tell people boys become men there. So I went there as a boy. I became a man out of there. And saying that, I was in the 25th Infantry Division from 2016 to the end of 2019. So about 3 years. There, I experienced a lot of not only just organic, so like the unit training, but we also did foreign arms training. So like have foreign armies come with us, train up with us. So build relations, and then a lot of, other training as far as like jungle warfare. And we had some special operations unit come and pick individuals like, hey, we need a list of individuals to come train with us. If you're going to train with special operations, you're not going to send the worst of the worst. You're going to send people that are reliable. So I was fortunate to be part of that. That was really cool. It's a culture. So showing up there, they were all about being lethality. We were trained to be lethal. That is a job. So I took that to heart because I bought into it. Well, that's our job. So why not be the best at what we can do? It's just a lot of running and gunning, or a lot of time under the trigger, a lot of time behind heavy machine guns, a lot of time behind trucks. It is so much fun because when you think Army, you think of just shooting, blowing things up. That is what the 25th is. And then they would also tell us, if you work hard, you're going to play even harder. So they gave us our time back. So we would miss weekends with families. But ultimately, they're like, hey, we came back from the field, take these next 3 days off, be with your families because you earned it. So it was good. It was like I played hard, I worked, I gave my hardest, and then I got rewarded. That's what I like. versus, I would hear, friends from different units. They're like, man, we just sit around. We don't really do anything. It's hard to be here. I'm just like, I can't relate, man, because this unit, we're always training. We're always trying to be better, sharpening our skills. And I love it. So I guess in comparison, each unit has, their ability to be great. But I think Hawaii's was the greatest because I got to do what I signed up for.
So you went from the 25th, and did you go to the 3rd right after?
Yep, I went to 3rd Cavalry Regiment in Fort Hood.
There was a story of you on the internet, if you haven't seen it, and you talk about this event that you had to do, this physical event that you had to go through with, and I believe it was called the Brave Rifles, is what you guys called yourself. Is that right?
Yes, we're the Brave Rifle Regiment.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's what I was looking at. And there's a quote from you. I'm going to quote it. And it says, "We go into everything wanting to crush and kill. It comes down to want, drive, and heart. You have to want to drive yourself." And then you say, that there's a couple other things you say there, but it's interesting to see, because you're talking about how the 25th was very impactful for you in your first couple of years formatively in the military. So walk me through, you're in the 25th. What rank were you when you were in there?
So I came in as an E1. We call it fuzzy because you have Velcro and you don't have any rank. So it's fuzz right there. And I ranked up to a sergeant in 3 years. I was the lowest man to now what we call a non-commissioned officer, where I have responsibilities.
And so when you transferred from the 25th to the 3rd, did you go up in rank? Does it stay the same? How does that work?
I did. I showed up already as a non-commissioned officer NCO. So when you show up to a new unit as an NCO, there's kind of a stigma where like, oh, this guy, he knows what he's doing. Like you have to go to a board, an evaluation board. You have to answer certain questions right, everything. It has to be unanimous. So I did that, went to my promotion school, passed that, because if you fail promotion school, you can't get promoted. Passed that, and then made the points, picked up. So when I showed up, they're like, oh, he already knows what he's doing. And then I was very fortunate enough to where my squad leader, he was a higher rank, he was an E6. He had some disciplinary actions and he got fired. So I immediately took his job. So I was thrown into a position I've never had before, or just get after it again, crush it. And that's what I did. I ultimately took his job, and I ended up the next month winning best squad competitions, best squad live fires. And, it was kind of, I don't like bragging, but it's like, I wasn't trying. I was just doing what I knew to do, how to lead my men. And then it just transferred over to it being one of the greatest accomplishments I've ever had. So it's very hard. I tell people, be where your boots are. Again, you can sulk and not be happy about something, or you can just make the best of the situation and be the greatest you can be.
So you said earlier there were people that you thought it was weird for them to just do whatever people tell them to. So I assume if it's weird to you, you're not one of those people. What was you that made you, because you're obviously very driven, you're very motivated to do what it is that you're doing. Maybe you were just born that way. Maybe it's because you were raised in a military family, but I get the sense that there was somebody who said something to you at some point in time that really got you to buy into what you're doing.
I wouldn't say it was one individual. It was probably multiple individuals and a lot of experiences. Like obviously 9/11 was a big one. I wasn't, in a significant age. I was maybe 4 or 5 years old when that happened. Growing up and reading things, and then growing up and watching, the global war on terror, us in Afghanistan and Iraq, be playing on the news like it was nothing. Like this, we're at war, this country's at war, and understanding the gravity of it, meeting people at the Veterans of Foreign, BFWs, the Veteran of Foreign Wars and stuff, and seeing how, we get treated with great we're welcome back with fanfare versus, the Vietnam veteran that was spit on, called baby killers. And they're like us. They were just doing their duty, but, society didn't agree with it. And ultimately, like, they were looked on as less of a human. That really, like, bugged me because, a lot of them volunteered. Some were drafted, yes, but they did the selfless act. Like, they could have just, dodged the draft. They could have not volunteered. They could have just lived great lives, not serving their country, but they didn't. It was just selfless act. So that really stuck with me. Like, it's me trying. They paved the way for the modern soldier. Without them making their sacrifices, the World War I, II, Korean War, Vietnam, Gulf War, Desert Storm, the global war on terror. Without the warfighters before me, I wouldn't be where I am. And it's kind of like paying homage to them. Like, they did their job with less technology and less equipment and not the greatest conditions. And but I'm going to complain when I get rained and wet on. So it's like trying to make the warriors before me proud is the biggest thing. And then again, watching us get attacked on US soil, it made me feel like, again, maybe it's not me as an individual that can make a difference, but like if they're watching, if someone stumbles upon, my platform and they're like, man, this is what just a regular soldier does on his off time is train for war. We should probably rethink about attacking. And then, another part is just, it's my duty. Again, like I look at it as God, country, family. God is number one, country is number two, and then my family, is right there. God gave me this drive. Again, I could use this drive to be the greatest burger flipper at Sonic where I worked at, but that's ultimately where my heart's not at. It's protecting this country. So again, I'm not going to do it half-ass. I'm going to do it 100%. And it's bringing that culture. Like if I could be the change in someone's life as a young junior enlisted, I always looked at, higher ranks as like, man, these dudes are awesome. They're so driven. I want to be like them. And to like now having those junior enlisteds look at me like, man, this dude's awesome. I'm like, okay, what I'm doing at my level matters. It may not be at the level I want it to be, with big army, but if I can change again one individual's life, then I think I've done it. I've been successful.
There's an old movie, if you haven't seen it, called Follow Me Boys. It's an old Disney movie. It's one of the last ones that Walt worked on right before he passed. And if you're a Disney buff, which John, I believe you are a Disney buff. I think the only person on here who's not a Disney buff is Sam.
Yeah. Wow. He's a Pixar guy.
I'm just like, I don't watch any of those things. The movie centers around an individual who is basically, he's run his course of being young and in college and he's getting older and he's studying to be a lawyer. He drops off in this small town, decides he's going to stay there and build a life and he's going to figure out what he's going to do. Ends up running the Boy Scout troop that had not existed yet, and Walt Disney loved the Boy Scouts. So this is really a tribute film to them. And every so often throughout the movie, as he gets older and it shows his life kind of going through it, he ends up, kind of saying, hey, I'm going to go back to law school, maybe not yet, and talks about it with his wife and all these things. As the movie goes on, at the end of the movie, he gets elderly. He realized he never went back to law school. He's like, this just wasn't my thing. And there's a line throughout in Kurt Russell, whenever he's like 15, is in this movie. So old Kurt Russell film. He goes and he says, they may not need it, but this one boy does. And so that's kind of paraphrasing one of the lines from the movie. At the end of the movie, he's retiring and he thinks, it's kind of whatever, just going to do retirement. They're like, hey, let's go outside. The town wants to talk to you, say hi, thank you for everything that you've done. Well, he goes out and there's this massive parade he wasn't expecting. The whole town comes out. All the boys of lives that he's, had an impact on come out, their families come out. There's, 20-year-olds, the mayor, I think the governor's there. One of the Boy Scouts they all had these amazing lives. And it comes to turn out that it didn't matter that he didn't go do something great himself, but it was the individuals of the lives that he touched along the way, ripple impact that. And Walt Disney was a really big person that focused on it. Everybody has an impact. It's not, you don't have to impact the whole world, but you have to impact your world and make a good lasting impact. When I hear you talk about this and taking what you heard from the 25th into the 3rd, and I'm sure then afterwards to a lot of the other places you've gone and probably where you're at today, it feels connected. Like there's a piece of you that has been molded and shaped along the way to get to where you're at now. And I think that whenever your focus is on others rather than yourself, I think it's honored. You can call it karma, you can call it God, whatever it is that you're wanting to call it. There's an honor to that whenever you put others first. So I just found that interesting. Kind of, you're a living proof of, a clear example of you learned something, you applied it, and then that impacted others. And I think that's you. So you went from the 3rd division, right? And then you went
Cavalry Regiment.
Cavalry Regiment. Thank you. Then you went from that. And then what happened after that in your career? Where'd you go?
So my career progressed in the 3rd Cavalry Regiment, doing humanitarian service missions and training. So Army looks at it as you're successful in this career field as your main career field. We're going to give you what's called a broadening assignment. So they selected me to be a Army recruiter. I can tell you right now, I was not happy about it. My dream was always to be a drill sergeant. I wanted the hat. My grandfather was a Marine Corps drill instructor, so I kind of wanted that tradition, again, shaping and molding individuals, instilling that lethality at a very young age for young infantrymen, young soldiers, so that they can continue that great tradition of training and leading. I wanted that. Big Army decided, no, you're going to be an Army recruiter. So I was not the happiest. I was at the recruiting college in Fort Knox, Kentucky. I tried failing. I failed my first test, and they said, it's okay. You're going to be an Army recruiter. And they helped us study. And again, I took that like, am I really going to fail on purpose because I'm going to be so selfish? I'm going to throw a little fit. Like, I don't want to be here. I want something else. So I ended up passing, making it through the college. And it came natural. Again, I'm a big believer in I'm not going to beg you to join my organization because in my eyes, this organization should have changed for you. We have standards and disciplines that we shouldn't lower for you. You should change for the organization. So me trying to beg people to join this great organization, I was like, nah, this is not going to sit right with me. I was thinking very like personal, one-dimensional until I went to the Houston Recruiting Battalion and in process with them. They're like, what's your job? I was like, I'm an infantryman. They're like, are you happy you're here? I was like, no, but I'll be damned if I'm not going to be the best at it. They're like, that's the attitude we need. So I took that with me. I was like, okay, I can either sulk and be upset that I'm here or try my best and be the greatest. And my first year was not my greatest year. It took me 6 months to write my first contract, which was very hard. But after that, it became almost natural to where I wasn't trying to convince you to join the Army. I was just telling you my story and what the Army's done for me and what it could do for you and how it could change your life or help align with some of your goals. And ultimately, I was very successful in my 3 years of recruiting. I'm not going to say I was like the greatest all-time recruiter, but I was very successful in not only recruiting individuals, but building community relations. That's a big thing people overlook with recruiters because we are looked at as ambassadors for the military because we're not near a base sometimes. I was out in College Station, Texas. The closest base was Fort Hood, which was like an hour and a half. So a lot of people may not know what an Army recruiter does or who they are, or we're just trying to get you to join the Army. But being an ambassador, like showing like selfless service, right? Like me volunteering, I'd volunteer all the time. I'd go to the VFW, hang out with all the old guys, eat donuts with them, they'd talk about their war stories, how it's nice to see young men come and hang out with them, to me volunteering for Special Olympics and helping the high school special teams and kids because, they look again like people in uniform are like gods to people for some reason. Again, we're just dudes that put on pants one leg at a time. And then being that ambassador for the Army, showing them like, hey, I'm just a regular dude like you. They just, took a leap of faith, raised their right hand, repeated an oath, and this could be you. So that was very rewarding. It showed me a different side of the Army and a different side of myself too.
Can you give me your sales pitch?
So let me see. Man, it's been a while. But, I made a lot of money from what I call face-to-face. Usually it was classroom settings, but it'd be like, good morning, class. I'm Staff Sergeant Tozzi. I'm here just to talk about the Army. I'm not going to try to convince you to join. I'm just going to give you my story. I joined right out of high school. I'm a rooting student, paratrooper, knuckle dragger, tracer chasing, freedom fighter. All right. That's me, barrel chested. All right. I fight my country's wars on the tip of the spear. And this is all I've ever wanted to do. And I'm living the dream. And then I go into my experiences like with the 20. How many of y'all been in the jungle? Usually no one raised their hand. I was like, okay. How many of y'all been in the rain? They're like, do you like that? Like, no. I was like, I like it. How many of y'all been in the mud? Y'all getting dirty? And, some weird kids will raise their hand and be like, I love it. That's where I thrive. And I go into my experiences, with foreign armies, helping them teaching us teaching them. And then my time at Fort Hood, doing my humanitarian service mission during COVID-19 when people were locked down. I'd bring food, water, take them to get tested, stuff like that. I didn't have to do it, but I did because I wasn't going to sit at home and collect a government paycheck and not do a job. So it made me feel good about myself. And to now being a recruiter where, I can debunk a lot of myths in the Army and show you how the Army can work for you. I've showed pictures of me meeting celebrities in uniform, stuff like that. So I'm trying to, again, show them like, hey, I was right where y'all were back in, high school many years ago. And you can be where I'm at now. I'm telling you, it's a lot better when I have my slideshow and my music going and everything.
What was your song? What'd you pick?
So it was a bunch of training videos. So some of it's from the 25th, and it's us just doing support by fires with our trucks, letting 50 cals go sick lick on targets. A lot of low flying helicopters. And then again, in the 3rd Cavalry Regiment, some of us were on a helicopter. We got video footage of us flying low, jumping out, hitting a target, getting back in. So a lot of cool guy videos is what I call them. A lot of propaganda videos. I did. And to show them, like, again, I'm just a regular dude, just got training and then became good at it. And now you could do it too.
I'm sure for the kids, they're like, oh, that looks way better than being a doctor.
It is. And then if people are like, do you really enjoy your job? I'm like, yeah, it's the hardest job in the Army. But again, it's to me the most rewarding because I could have been a cook in the army. I mean, we need cooks. They're very essential. But at the same time, to me, I'm like, no one signs up to army to be a cook. If you do, I mean, I'm not knocking you, but that's your thing. But to me, I'm just like, I gotta kick in doors. I gotta blow something up. I gotta shoot something. It's fun. But the army is for everybody. There's a job in there for everybody. If you think about it, we have vet techs. So there's a job. There's a job for everybody.
I want to pause for just a second here. If you're listening to this while you're leading something, whether that's a business, a team, church, nonprofit, you're not here by accident. If this is helping you think clearer, lead better, I want you to take 2 seconds and share this with somebody who carries the same weight that you do. And don't forget to subscribe. Okay, let's get back into it. When you go from Army recruiting and you obviously have to hit quotas, how do you navigate trying to get a quota in while also trying to be authentically yourself? If you're not trying to just make everybody join and you want to make sure that the people you're getting in actually have the vibe, and you talk about culture earlier, you want people who actually fit the culture, what you're trying to build. How do you hit a quota and hit what we would call KPIs in other worlds, along with also being authentic?
So that's where me and a lot of recruiters bumped heads, because I'm not going to sell you something I'm not going to buy. I never really worried about the quota, because there are times where I didn't meet my quota, but I would meet it later on in the next quarter, the quarter after. But people knew me. They knew that I search for quality, not quantity. I'm not looking for Captain America, right? I'm not looking for the super soldier. I'm looking for the individual that may not know they need the army, but once they meet with me, they're going to be like, man, maybe this is me. So a lot of people say you recruit in your own image. Apparently I have different images, because I recruited anywhere from the high school all-state football player to band geek. I've recruited all of them. So it's kind of hard, but I never compromise my morality into it. I tell people, everything I'm going to tell you is public knowledge. Look it up on the internet. I'm not going to lie to you, because I believe in karma. And, if I lie to you, it's going to come back to bite me in the butt. So I'm going to be as honest with you. And I just ask that, you be honest with me. So I guess not compromising my morality into it really helped, because then your name will get around, because you're recruiting where you live. So I would see, people that I didn't necessarily know. They'd be like, oh, it's Sergeant Tozzi, the Army recruiter. I'm like, oh, excuse me, but who are you? Like, oh, our friend told you, he met with you. I was like, oh, yes, I know your friend. Like, maybe we want to join now. And it's just a snowball effect again. To me, the biggest thing is I never compromised my morality, my moral compass. I would never do that. And then it just paid off. Like, word of mouth started getting around, and it just helped me be successful in that career. My social media platform helped too. I did color guard for the Houston Astros, so I kind of bragged on that. They're like, oh, we could do this. I was like, potentially can. I'm not saying you will. I'm just saying, like, this is cool. And they're like, oh, you met celebrities? I'm like, I met a couple celebrities. Here's Roger Clemens.
Sam, what do you think that applies to leaders in the church or in other organizations whenever they're trying to balance authenticity, whether that's in brand or in marketing or in just culture, as well as trying to hit financial revenue goals?
Yeah, it's tough because, I can't imagine for everybody that would be in your position, John, that moral compass is necessarily the most important objective. On the other side of that, in a church nonprofit setting, it's like the most important thing. Because you were saying earlier, you saw people that were ahead of you in leadership. You want to be like that person. And then now you're where they're at, and people are looking at you saying, oh, wow, he's doing something that I want to do. I want to be like that guy. And it reminded me of Paul saying, I follow me as I follow Christ. And we're imitating the imitator. But if the imitator gets it wrong, all of a sudden, it's like the whole thing falls apart, because we just forget that we still are supposed to be imitating the original. You know what I mean? I guess it's like in the church worldview, I think the easiest way to fall off is to worry about the goal. The easiest way to fall off is to worry about the money, because if it becomes about the money, then it's not about what it should be about. And so I liked what you were saying, where, you didn't worry about the quota because you were worried about the quality of the job. And I feel like that really applies to the nonprofit, to the church world so much, because if we're just worried about money, if we're worried about hitting certain number projections, which most of the time, by the way, are made up, it's just a goal that somebody do. There's no real value attached to it. If you get attached to those things beyond what it is that you should be doing, which is worrying about how someone's walk with Christ is, in the sense of like, what can I do to help you get where you'd like to be in your life with God? Or how can I be an example of Christ in your life so that you can have the presence that you're supposed to have in your life, which is my job? How can I comfort you with the comfort that I myself have received, which is a biblical mandate? And if we kind of let those things fall by the wayside, I feel like all the other stuff doesn't matter, because you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have anybody that you're reaching, that money doesn't have any actual value, you know?
It's a good point. My background is always trying to get money. I'm coming from a lot of marketing, a lot of sales, a lot of fundraising in for-profit, nonprofit. So for me, I'm the other side of the coin. I'm always let's push it, let's make money, and then we'll figure that out later. It's a lot of where I have to go to, but there has to be a balance. Like in marketing, you can't sell a product and you can only trick somebody once. So if you don't have any operations that fulfills what you're trying to do through marketing, then you're going to fall apart. The TikTok, everybody's on TikTok right now. TikTok Shop is really a clear example of that. They have a standard that you have to be fulfilling your product for shipment within 3 days of purchase, not scanning the label that's like in the mail within 3 days of purchase. So it eliminates like drop shipping and some of these more handcrafted items, but it keeps a standard approach to say, hey, if you're going to sell the product, you need to fulfill that product. You can't just like take people's money and then not fulfill it. You have to have a good product. You have to have a good heart, a good morality into it, but you also have to have a driving force behind sales and fundraising. Oftentimes what I see people do is they try to create a goal, which was Sam just said, try to create a goal, and you don't have any backing for why you have that goal. It's just like, hey, we're going to make $1 million this year. Why? Or, we need to get a new building for the church. Why? Like, we can rent. Like, what's the problem with renting? Why do we have to buy it? Why do we have to figure that out? A lot of times, I think people get too far ahead of what they're trying to do and just set some arbitrary number rather than saying, what's the impact we're really trying to have on a daily basis? What's our overall real mission here? What are we really about? I was thinking one of the things that I want to do in this podcast is marry education to action. So if we're talking about morality and having a good heart through the process, and then I'm over here talking about numbers, how do we bring those two together? How do we set goals for a team? Now, maybe we walk through that first. Whenever you were in recruiting, did you have a team that you're over, or was it just you trying to hit your quota yourself?
So there was an individual mission. So every recruiter assigned one, but we also had a station mission. So overall mission. For instance, I was in a large station. So we had 11 or 12 recruiters. Towards the end of it, in the beginning, we were undermanned, but we still had the same quota. We still had, we had to reach the 11 or 12. So if I didn't write my one, that meant someone else has to pick up my slack. And that kind of didn't sit right with me. Because again, I can't perform at my job that I've been, tasked to do. And someone else has to, pick up my slack. That kind of made me feel like kind of suck at life.
Did you ever have people who intentionally slacked off though, and then you had to cover for?
I wouldn't say intentionally. There were times where, the job will get to you again. So we call it like you taking your foot off the gas for a little bit. There were some times like that, but ultimately it wasn't a reoccurring issue. It was like, okay, they had time to slow down, take a knee, catch your breath, and they'll pick it right back up. So it's always finding that balance. You can only be overworked for so long before it takes a toll on.
How did you approach team members whenever they obviously were struggling?
I would just genuinely check on them, be like, hey man, how are you really doing? Forget the job. How are you doing as a person? Your personal life, things aren't good at home. It will bleed into your professional life, and people may not think it does, but other people will be able to see, especially if they really, really know you. But for the most part, like I could tell when someone was having like really, really off day or an off month. So I would just be like, hey man, at the end of the day, this job's going to be here regardless. Recruiting is not going to make it or break it with year one contract. If this is your time to take a knee, relax, so be it. I just ask that, you come back swinging, come back next month, stronger than ever. And again, people respond to different things, different ways. Some people need that kind of like the big brother mentality or big brother, approach. Other people need that like, hey man, that professional work, like, hey, like you sucking right now. I need you to pick it up. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. The athlete approach, like, the athlete that misses a block, like, hey dog, you missed that block. You can drop down to second string. You're like, oh no, I'll pick it up. So again, I guess it pertains to knowing your audience and knowing the individual.
Is there a mistake that you see a lot of leaders that you're under make, like something that is habitual or a really common thing that you would be like, I would not do that at all?
It's hard. It is very hard. I would say, yes, I'm not going to name drop or anything, but, in recruiting, you can never be good enough, right? For instance, there's one time where wrote 3 or 4 contracts in a quarter or in a month. And I was like, man, I really, really worked hard. The joke is, okay, I need more. I was like, oh man, like, this is very hard for me. I need more. There's some leaders that will overwork you and they don't know when to ease back on the reins. It gives you that kind of like that like, man, I don't care attitude anymore. Like, man, no matter what I do is not good enough because you're always gonna ask for more. So why even give you? Why go above and beyond? Why don't I just do the bare minimum? So there's been some times where like, hey, like I was trying and trying and trying, and it was just like, hey, you're just being mediocre. You're not trying hard enough. I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying. But then it came to me realizing like at the end of the day, I'm not gonna make or break the army. You know, the 1 or 2 people I don't put in this month isn't gonna make or break us meeting our goals. Again, my morality is not gonna get compromised.
What does it look like for you then on the leadership side of that to kind of walk the line between discipline and morale?
It's hard. Again, it's knowing your audience. So I know how far I can push my guys. You know, I don't know them just on a professional level. I know them on a personal level because I'm a firm believer in if I can't trust you outside of work, what makes you think I could trust you inside of work? You know, so building that one-on-one time with them and kind of getting a feel for them. You know, there's been I've had leaders where they just go through the motions like, oh, I'm here just to do this job. I'm not really going to know you on a personal level. What drives you? And I mean, I respect them. I mean, that's their way they do things. Cool if it worked out for them. But I never wanted that. I wanted, you know, I tell people be the leader. So I've always wanted it and had leaders that genuinely cared. So being that for them and then knowing them again, I know how far or hard I can push my guys, what motivates them individually and as a team. So it's kind of like, again, knowing your audience, but you have to take that time to really dive into it, genuinely knowing them. And they have to be willing to be vulnerable. Again, like if I just met you, you're not going to open up about your deepest, darkest past. You know, I have to build that trust with you. So it's building that trust and rapport too.
How do you do that with people who have walls that don't want to?
I'm usually the one to kind of be vulnerable first because again, I was kind of like that person that always had the walls that I was like, I don't want no one to know. I want to be Mr. Perfect. I don't want no one to know that I have flaws because, you know, that's not who I am. Me opening up to them. For instance, back when I was in Fort Hood, I had one soldier who was kind of timid. He really didn't open up. Great soldier. Even to this day, he's doing great things. You know, his mother passed away. And I was like, man, you know, and a lot of people are like, you know, you'll hear, I'm sorry or something, but how could you be sorry if you never experienced it? And I pulled him aside. I was like, hey, man, talk to me. I know what you're going through. I just lost my father last year. And I lost my father to cancer. So I know what you're going through. I know, I get if you don't want to talk, but I'm here. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to do anything to demoralize you. But if you just need someone to talk to, I'm here. And to me, being that vulnerable with him broke down his walls. And I got to learn a lot about him as not only a person, but as a soldier. And it helped me navigate like who he is. And then again, like I said earlier, he's doing great things for the Army now. He's still a really good friend of mine. I still keep in contact with him when I can. It started from me taking that initial leap, like, hey, I'm not going to pressure him. I'm just going to show him that I'm vulnerable. So maybe he understands, like, hey, it's okay to be vulnerable in this position.
I want to get deep here for a second on that because I think a lot of people deal with loss in leadership. What was it like to lose your dad whenever you were in a position of having to lead in a high impact role that you have?
It was rough because he battled with cancer throughout my life. He beat it, but then when we found out it made it to his brain and it became terminal, he knew how much time he had. We didn't. So it made it hard because I was always focusing on how much time I had to spend with my dad. And he was in California, I was in Hawaii. So it's not like the Army's like, oh, dog, yeah, go for it. Go be with your dad. There's certain special circumstances. But I had leaders that were like, hey, this job or this thing we're doing right now isn't that important. You don't need to be here. And for me, I had to wrestle with that on a personal level because, again, like, I'm here to do a job. If I can't be an asset to you, I'm a liability, and a liability will ultimately get us killed. So I can't do that. And it took me taking a step back, like, they're right. Like, I really don't need to be here. Let me go be with my father because I don't know how much time I have. So, that's another thing. I'm really grateful with the 25th. They provided the opportunity for me to be with my father almost every other quarter. I tell people I was in California almost every other quarter to be with my dad when I found out he had cancer. And, they paid for my flights. They paid from me leaving from Hawaii, me for leaving from Louisiana. when I was attached to 10 Special Forces Group for joint training operation to be with him. They allowed me to, you know, at the time I didn't know the last time I was there with him, it was legitimately the last time he passed when I was there. And I was forever grateful that they allowed me to miss some training to be there with him. And they extended my time over there to do his funeral service, which was great. So it was very hard dealing with it. But again, it's life. Everyone has to die at some point, some sooner than later. Losing my father at that point in my life was very difficult because I didn't get to do the things I said I was going to do. I didn't get to show him how far I could go in the military. He saw enough to where I think he knew that I was going to be good at what I did and be a great leader. So that kind of gave me a sense of peace, knowing that whatever morals he instilled in me were still there. So but it took a lot of time. I'm not going to say where overnight it was fine. I did, struggle with, alcoholism, getting drunk every weekend, fighting people because I miss my dad. But it took one leader, and I'm actually at his house right now to kind of show me like, hey, man, it's okay. What you're saying is completely normal. We all deal with it. And he kind of took that big brother approach, and I'm forever grateful for you. At the time, I knew him for like 2 months, and he was vulnerable with me, and he took me under his wing, and it flourished into a great bond. He's basically family. He just had a daughter not too long ago, and I'm Uncle Tozzi, which is great. I'm an uncle to so many kids that aren't mine. He was just that leader I wanted, that big brother, and he helped mold my career, whether he knows it or not.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. It's a hard one, especially whenever it's parents. Is there anything that your dad said that sticks with you?
Says a lot of things.
Anything you want to share?
Yeah, a lot of things. I don't know. I guess it wasn't more of what he said. It was how he was with people and who he was. Because, Stephen, you know this. We grew up in the same church. There wasn't a room my dad would walk into and no one would be like immediately excited, or happy that he was there. Or they'd be like, oh, that's Mr. John. But it was
like 7 foot tall and
so crazy.
From Top Gun.
Flat top, yeah. The trademarked flat top. So it wasn't more like anything he said. It was just how he was. Like, man, I want to walk into a room and like be that candle. Every room I walk into, it lights up. I want that. I see how people, gravitate towards him. I want to be that. So again, yeah, I guess it wasn't anything he said. It was just how he was.
If you could, I'm going to get deep here again. If you could say anything to your dad today, what would you say?
Man, it's hard. I'd let him know that the Harley I still have that was his is still good and running. I'd let him know that. It'd probably be like, that he loves me and I love him, and then they did a great job raising me, and I hope I make him proud every day.
I think a big theme that I've seen when I'm listening to you talk about your experiences is the importance of culture. And Stephen and I were talking about that a little bit earlier today. I imagine you probably don't get to keep the same soldiers all the time. It's my understanding that it's a pretty heavy rotation. And so you're constantly having to repitch this vision whenever you're around new people all the time, or you're trying to establish some sort of morale or rapport. It's important that you have a vision that you can pitch to people and that you buy into it and that you're with it. What is like your number one thing? If I can only do one thing, I get like one day to really pour into these guys and kind of sell on, this is, what we're doing. This is who we are. This is what we're about. What is your thing about like building that culture of how do I really establish the sense of what it is that we do here?
Man, that's a good question. I would say my thing is I always ask them, what's your why? And that can be like, to me, that applies to anything, right? What's your why? What's your why that you joined? And they'll let me know. I'm like, okay, some people join for money. Some people join for, selfless service the country. I'll tell them, remember your why, because your why is why you're here. Now apply it to every day and just be the best you can. And I think you'll do great. I tell them my why. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm here not only to serve my country, but to serve you. If you can't trust me, then I've done something wrong as a leader. Being that selfless service, I'll sacrifice as much as I can for you. As long as it's legal and moral and ethical, I'll give you my all. I just ask that you give me your all. And it's usually, well received. So I haven't had anyone kind of not believe that. Again, it's just showing him like I'm not a robot. It's a regular dude. I got a family, but showing him like, hey, I'm not here to be just some mindless soldier. I'm more or less your big brother, kind of like I'm in charge of you, but I'm not above you. We're both human beings.
That's good, man. I like that. Stephen, you got any else for our friend John here?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, in all this molding that you've gone through, in the last 11 years. What has it taught you about yourself in that process? Like what's internally something that you've learned about who you are?
It helped me, man. It showed me how far I can go and how much I can do if I really just put my mind to it. Because I tell people all the time, if you would have asked me 9 years ago, 10 years ago, I was gonna still be in the army, I would have told you you're lying. I was a one and done dude. One contract, 3 years, get out, be a cop. Going through it, I'm just like, I was always intimidated of going through army courses or training events or being a leader. But going through it is just like, hey, I'm gonna fail. It's gonna happen. If it does, it's not the end of the world. I'd rather fail in training than fail in real life. But just learn from it. Learn from it and be where your boots are. So it really showed me like, hey, I can't be perfect. I'm not, and I can't be. But that doesn't mean I can't give it 100% and try to.
How do you take knowing you messed up in that sense, where you did something that didn't line up with maybe what your morality was, or you didn't hit a standard that you had set? How do you take that and actually decide to learn? Like, where do you take that from? Like you go, okay, I messed up. Here's what I did that I didn't like, and how am I going to change that? What does that process look like for you?
So usually I kind of, it depends on the severity of it, obviously. Like, for instance, I went to a shooting competition this past week and I missed 2 targets. It was a night shooting competition. I didn't engage 2 targets because I just forgot. And I took it as like my buddy was scoring me and he was like, oh, dude, you didn't engage these 2 targets. I was like, oh no, now you're dead. Now I got to write a letter to your wife as to why you're dead because I couldn't clear a corner. So it's like kind of dark humor for me is like, like I messed up and then taking it like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have gone that fast. Let me slow down. Let me walk through my process, my steps. So this doesn't happen again. And again, like I failed a lot, but again, it's just like, don't take it too hard, I guess. I try not to take it too hard because if I like dwell on it, like what's that movie, Meet the Robinsons? If I didn't fall asleep, then I would have caught the ball and then like, my whole life is just me not catching a ball and then getting revenge on some kid. So like me is like, do I dwell on it for the rest of my entirety and then just have a vendetta against myself or just like it happened, whatever, you know,
It's a highly underrated film right there.
dude, so many good lessons in there.
It's so good. The whole point is to keep moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. Like, again, I guess this applies like, yeah, just can't keep moving forward. Like there are many lessons. There are many lessons in failing. There are many lessons in failing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. A couple more things I want to go through before we run out of time. You mentioned having to deal with a little bit of alcoholism and fighting whenever
Mm.
things got rough.
Mm.
Now you had a support system. And one of the things that we've heard you talk a lot about is making sure you have people around you and
Mm.
making sure that you are also building a culture.
Mm.
But there's got to be times, and we know that the military is the rate of suicide and depression is high. We know that's obviously a problem. It's like a white elephant in the room most of the time on these conversations. So for you, have you battled with that? How
Oh,
have you come out on the other side?
yeah, it's very rough. There have been many dark days, especially, your dad's a superhero and losing him, it always hurts. And it's kind of like the lashing out, like if I'm upset, everyone has to feel my pain type of thing. And it's dumb, right? And then, those deep, dark thoughts creep in when you start isolating yourself. Again, it's not the healthiest way to deal with things. It took one person just being there and then another person have that uncomfortable conversation. I call it like checking your homie. Hey, dog, you're really messing up right now. You're getting drunk almost every day. You're showing up. You're not performing your best. Why even be here at this point? This is an organization where you have to be at your 100% all the time. And I was like, "Ah, like, dang it, I hate how right you are." I was like, even though I'm upset and hurt, I was like, you're right. And then another thing is just like, how would my dad feel about me doing this? Like, am I really honoring his memory by throwing a tantrum and getting drunk and going to the bar and picking fights, even though, I'm pretty good at them? But it's just like, is this really what, you know, I want to, the way I'm honoring him, or just take it and be the best soldier I can, be like, oh, it hurts, but be that rock, just like, hey, this is what it is, keep moving. So dealing with those dark thoughts, I guess the biggest thing is shout out Sergeant Q. He told me tough times don't last, only tough people. Obviously, he used a different word, but I'm gonna keep it PG. So there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Again, we're not here to know
Yeah, that's a good point. With that in mind, your job, you talked about you start at 4:30 in the morning, you check on your guys. That's even before your job's actually started. And sure that you go through the whole day, you work a 9 to 5 if you're stateside, then you
Mm.
got things you got to do after that. How do you find time to get your mind right whenever the job never shuts off?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It is hard, and I'll be the first to admit, sometimes I'm always at work, and my fiance hates it sometimes because it does bleed into our life. At the end of the day, like, the mental aspect of it is kind of key into it, so if my mind's not right, I can't perform at the highest level I can for my job, so it's the going to bed and waking up knowing that, like, "Hey, right now, it's time. It's a switch, turn on. It's time to get after it." Now we'll use a dial to adjust how much gas I need to give and then switch it off when it's time to relax and be with the family. So it just takes some people are really good at it. I'm one of those dudes that have to constantly self evaluate and have those very uncomfortable conversations with my family. When I'm being Sergeant Tozzi instead of the husband or fiance I need to be, I guess it's a learning curve. It really is. And it's an ongoing learning curve. We're always trying to learn and adapt, and it's just hard. So,
Yeah.
uh,
I really understand what you're saying. And I really appreciate what you're saying about like getting really comfortable with your own failures. And Steve and I talk about this a lot, that it's one of the biggest flaws I think we have with how we've structured what life looks like in a nonprofit church section is that like leadership can't mess up. I feel like if I have somebody above me who can own that they
mhm.
screw, then they can say, very authoritatively, I missed the mark and it's going to happen. I wish it didn't happen. I don't like it any more than you do, probably even less than you. And I think that that's something that could be a much more powerful element of leadership in daily life if we can just get more comfortable with failure. And not that we say that it doesn't matter if we fail, but how can we make it all right that we did?
John, you're giving us some really good stuff to talk about. One last question I want to leave you with for the viewers is, if you had a young person coming into a leadership role today, or just
Mhm.
that you had to give a form of encouragement to or advice to, what could you tell them that would set them up for success for the day they're in, but also for 5, 10 years down the road?
It's kind of a new one I adopted, and it came from recruiting. Be where your boots are. Captain in recruiting told me that. So people will go to different units, whether they want to or not, and hear horrible things or great things. So you can either buy into it, or you can be where your boots are and be the best that you can do and be an asset to, and hopefully change that culture.
I like that. That's a fun way of saying like, just be present.
Yep.
If you're going to be here, be here.
We're big on making sure that people have real, tangible things to implement whenever they leave listening to this. And I think that you've given a lot of very clear, like we could take a lot of what you said today and move it into actionable steps. And so I think that's actually what we're going to do. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're wanting to get a little bit more info on what John said, we're going to have a link on our website with a download that you can go ahead and get some clear actionable steps from this podcast about how to be a leader and how to effectively implement change whenever you're dealing with a very diverse workplace that also has really a need for high output. John, I really appreciate everything that you shared today. It's a pleasure having you. Sam, do you have anything that you want to close with or last words here?
No, man, quick to listen, slow to speak, right? It's been great to have you with us, John. Appreciate a lot of what you said, a lot of what you do. Thanks for changing the life so that we can have the one that we do. It's great to meet you, man.
I appreciate y'all having me. And then, yeah, I mean, hopefully your viewers just take away, like, at the end of the day, we're just normal people. We're going to fail. If we're like Christ, I mean, everything would be perfect, but we're not. We're supposed to be Christ-like.
What I tell people is if we could be like Christ, we wouldn't need Christ.
Exactly. Exactly. A lot of us need them.
You go. Here's what we're actually building here. Done by Thursday isn't just a podcast. It's a place for leaders who are tired of theory and want clarity that they can act on. This show is produced by all, and we partner with founders, executives, pastors, and organizations to bring structure, strategy, and direction to whatever you're carrying. Clarity, strategic help, just want a better way forward.